Hello everyone, welcome back to Future X USA. Today we explore a fascinating and unconventional defense strategy that could reshape Europe's security. The use of wetlands, specifically restored peat bogs, as natural barriers against Russia's tanks. When we think of war, the first images that come to mind are missiles, drones, artillery, fighter jets, and above all, tanks. Russia alone has deployed tens of thousands of tanks over the years, making them a symbol of its battlefield tactics. Yet history teaches us that wars aren't decided by weapons alone. Terrain, weather, and nature often play just as decisive a role. And right now, Finland and Poland are rediscovering an ancient truth. Mother Nature herself can be a powerful ally in defense. The accidental lesson on August 29, Euromaidan Press reported something extraordinary. Finland and Poland are actively studying how wetlands can be restored along their borders to trap invading armor. The inspiration partly came from a tragic accident earlier in 2025, when 4 U.S. soldiers in Lithuania lost their lives after their armored recovery vehicle became stuck in a bog. The incident showed just how deadly and immobilizing wetlands can be, not only for people but especially for heavy armored machines. What if instead of accidents, nations deliberately used wetlands as part of their defensive networks? That is the strategy Poland and Finland are now considering. Turning back the clock, this isn't about building new missiles or designing futuristic drones. Instead, it's about reviving landscapes that once defined these nations. For centuries, peat bogs and wetlands covered vast areas of northern and eastern Europe. But over time, much of that land was drained for agriculture, forestry, and urban development. Now both governments are asking, what if we bring them back? Poland has already tied the idea into its $7 billion Eastern Shield project, explicitly mentioning peatland restoration and forestation of border regions. Finland, too, is preparing a peatland repair program with its Defense and Environment Ministry set to collaborate later this year. As Poland's Deputy Defense Minister Cezary Tomczyk put it simply, nature is an ally, and we want to use it. Why wetlands work? The logic is simple yet powerful. Wetlands are tank traps created by nature. These waterlogged areas swallow heavy vehicles whole, bogging them down until they are useless. The Greifswald Meyer Center in Germany explains, wet peatlands are impassable for tanks, slowing troop movements and forcing predictable corridors that defenders can more easily protect. In other words, restored wetlands don't just stop armor. They also funnel enemies into choke points, where ambushes, artillery, and drones can finish the job. The bog belt of Europe already has a natural geographic advantage. Much of its remaining wetlands form what Politico calls a bog belt, a stretch of swamps and peatlands running from Finland through the Baltics and into Poland. Conveniently, this bog belt sits right on NATO's eastern frontier, facing Russia and Belarus. Reviving even part of this bog belt could create a natural wall of defense stretching across hundreds of miles. Imagine Russia's tanks trying to push through, only to find themselves swallowed by the land itself. A lesson from history, this idea isn't new. History is full of examples where bogs and marshes turned battles. In AD 9, Germanic tribes used wetlands to ambush and destroy Roman legions. During the Winter War of the 1940s, Soviet troops struggled against Finland's swampy, frozen terrain. Throughout European history, wetlands slowed invasions, created natural choke points, and exhausted advancing armies. Finland's own lawmakers admit they're inspired by this history. Pauli Aalto-Setälä of Finland's parliament said, "In Finland, we've always used nature as a defense." Now it's time to restore areas near our eastern border to make them as difficult to cross as possible. Finland's advantage, roughly 1/3 of Finland, is peatland. Half of it was drained, often unsuccessfully, for forestry or farming. Many of those drained areas are now barren and unproductive, perfect candidates for rewetting. Christiana Lang of Finland's Natural Resources Institute put it best. If we need to rewet peatlands anyway, why not close to the eastern border? This dual-purpose approach serves both climate goals and national security. Poland's challenge, Poland's situation is slightly different. Wetlands make up only about 5% of its territory, and 85% of them have already been drained. Some of that land now supports farming communities, making restoration politically sensitive. Yet Poland's defense planners believe the effort is worth it. With Russia's aggression looming, security arguments carry more weight than ever. As activist Wiktoria Jedrzejczyk says, once you talk about security, everyone listens. Our peatlands and ancient forests are going to be very important for defense when war reaches Poland. Tanks meet their match. Why are wetlands such a nightmare for tanks? Tanks rely on mobility to survive. Once stuck, they become sitting ducks for drones, artillery, and infantry. Soldiers forced to abandon vehicles in boggy terrain often struggle to escape on foot, making them easy targets. Even if Russia avoids wetlands, defenders can use them to funnel enemy troops into pre-planned kill zones, similar to how minefields work. Ukraine's success with drones shows the devastating effect of immobilizing Russian armor. Now imagine combining drones plus wetlands. Tanks bog down, drones strike, and crews are left helpless. Guerrilla warfare's best friend, military theorists have long argued that wetlands are perfect terrain for asymmetric and guerrilla warfare. Karl von Clausewitz described them as environments where irregular fighters can exhaust larger armies through attrition, unpredictability, and terrain advantage. This is exactly what Ukraine has been doing against Russia, using creativity and terrain to blunt overwhelming mechanized assaults. Poland, Finland, and potentially other NATO states now have the chance to do the same. More than defense, climate benefits. Here's where the story gets even more interesting. Wetland restoration is not only a defense tactic, it's also a climate solution. Peatlands act as carbon sinks, trapping greenhouse gases. Europe's new nature restoration law requires countries to restore 30% of degraded peatlands by 2030. That law gives Finland, Poland, and Estonia until 2026 to submit restoration plans. For once, environmental and defense priorities align perfectly. As one observer put it, it's rare to see green policies and military strategy working hand in hand, but this might be the exception. The Baltic and beyond Poland and Finland aren't alone. Estonia has already confirmed it's in talks with its defense ministry about wetland restoration. Germany's think tanks are lobbying for EU-wide funding of peatland projects. Even Ukraine has expressed interest, though its immediate war priorities prevent large-scale restoration. Ironically, Soviet-era programs that drained Ukrainian wetlands decades ago may have made Russia's 2022 invasion easier. If the swamps had still been there, Russia might have struggled to break through the north. Challenges and risks restoring wetlands isn't easy. It can take years, sometimes decades. Rapid rewetting can create lakes instead of balanced ecosystems, and in some cases, communities or farmland may stand in the way. But even rapid, imperfect restoration can serve military goals. In 2022, Ukraine blew up the Kozarovichi Dam, creating makeshift wetlands that successfully slowed Russian advances. This kind of strategy, deliberately flooding terrain, may be controversial, but it shows what's possible when survival is on the line. Russia's dilemma for Vladimir Putin. This development is troubling. Russia has already lost over 11,000 tanks in Ukraine, according to Kiev's figures. Tanks are central to Russian doctrine, providing armor for infantry and spearheading assaults. If NATO nations turn their borders into natural tank traps, Russia's ground-based strategy faces a serious obstacle. And it's not just about Finland and Poland. If NATO embraces this idea across its eastern flank, Russia could find itself staring at a wall of wetlands stretching from the Arctic Circle to Central Europe. And the bigger picture, nature has always been a silent force in warfare. From Russia's own winters defeating Napoleon and Hitler to deserts slowing armies in the Middle East, terrain often decides battles. Now, in the 21st century, wetlands may return as one of Europe's most effective defensive tools. By restoring bogs, NATO nations kill two birds with one stone. 1. They meet climate goals. 2. They gain a nearly impenetrable natural barrier against invasion. It's a rare case where environmental sustainability and military preparedness go hand in hand. Conclusion: the world often sees defense in terms of steel and firepower, but as Finland and Poland remind us, sometimes the land itself is the greatest weapon. Tanks may dominate headlines, but against nature's quiet resilience, even the strongest machines falter. Vladimir Putin may dream of armored thrust across NATO borders, but if those borders turn into bogs and swamps, his dream could sink into the mud. And that's why the idea of wetlands as weapons might just be one of the most brilliant, if bizarre, defense strategies of our time. White heavy check mark. That's all for today's deep dive. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to Future X USA for more insights into global defense, strategy, and technology. And stay tuned, because next we'll explore another ingenious way Ukraine is outsmarting Russia's drones.